Kelly is the director of the Native American Legal Resource Center at Oklahoma City University School of Law. She teaches federal Indian law, tribal law, domestic violence and the lawyer, the Indian Child Welfare Act, and she is the co-author of the Indian Child Welfare Act Handbook. She has authored several articles about a variety of issues in Indian country, including state taxation, domestic violence, sexual offender registries, and monitoring. She has more than 20 years experience training and working in Indian country on issues affecting Native American children, elders, tribal self-determination, and domestic violence and sexual assault. So a wealth of knowledge and information, so please welcome Kelly Stoner.
Thank you and good morning. It's such an honor to be asked to speak here today. I'd like to thank the Office of Violence Against Women, the Office of Victims of Crime, the Tribal Law and Policy Institute, and everyone else working behind the scenes to bring this together. I also would like to tell you that's probably an old bio. For the last year, I've also been a district court judge, a tribal judge for the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma. Are those folks here? Raise your hand, don't be shy. Hello, thank you for coming. And as a part of being the director of the Native American Legal Resource Center at Oklahoma City University School of Law, one of the things that we do, one of our biggest projects, is in partnership with the Apache tribe of Oklahoma. We run a legal assistance to victims project there, and we've done that for the past 10 years. And we represent victims of sexual assault and domestic violence in a rural 7-county area in southwest Oklahoma. And I know that the Apache tribe of Oklahoma, OCU partner folks are here, so could you raise your hand? They do great work. Thank you. Okay, my address to you today, and while I focused on victim advocates working on the ground with victims of domestic violence and sexual assault, I think the message will be applied across the board. It's called the 3 We's, and we's is not a word. I looked it up, so it's not misspelled. Somebody said, is that Wes? No, it's we's. The 3 We's, and I'm briefly gonna go through the 3 We's with you, but before I do, I just wanted to say, I know we all acknowledge that the Creator has brought us here together at this time, in this place. It was easier for some of us than others to get here. We've left our families behind in many instances, our work behind, and we've come together to learn from one another, to share, and as Vice Chair mentioned earlier, to heal. To share these stories and to heal, and hopefully we can take bits and pieces of what we've experienced here back and provide better, more intensive, effective services to victims. I want to go through the first we, and the first we I wanted to go over with you is we are all invited to be servants. Our life journey has led us here, and for some of us, it's been difficult, it's been heartbreaking, it's been almost too much to bear. And for others, the journey here has been different. Maybe not so heartbreaking, but nonetheless, it's been their journey. It's okay that our journeys are different. They don't have to be the same. And I wanted to share with you 2 memories I have of my journey. And I don't know why I picked these 2 particular memories, but I think there's a message that comes, at least to me, from sharing this with you. The first memory I have is being 8 months pregnant, being kicked out of a van at night in the snow on a rural highway in the panhandle of Oklahoma. Not many cars going back and forth. And I remember walking in plastic shoes. I have no idea why, except I had bought the shoes at some discount store and the snow was coming in and my feet were cold. And that's the first memory that's very poignant with me about my experience with domestic violence, really before it was called domestic violence. My second memory is years later, after I graduated from law school, and I shared an office with my perp. And it was my birthday, and I had gone to the law office, and I was in great spirits, and I walk through the front door, and I see the secretary crying. That is never a good sign. So I didn't know what was going on. I said, "What's happened?" I thought maybe something had happened to one of my clients. And she just pointed to my office. I went into the office, and I mean, it was a wreck. My desk was turned over, my chairs, all my files had been ripped in half, the pictures were off the wall, and evidently the perpetrator did not like the way I kept my timesheets, and that was his message to me. And I remember, like I said, I don't know why these are the two memories that stick with me, but I think it might be because that's when I began to feel the inkling inside, that nudging, that this might be the kind of work that I was going to be called upon to do. And the nudging and the whispers became louder, and the little nudge became a push. And I eventually ended up in this field and have spent my entire career working with victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. And I feel like my journey, as heartbreaking and humiliating as it was, made me better. That somehow, on that long, dark road, or in that office that was mayhem, something good was happening. Something good was coming out of it. I was getting stronger, and I had a place. This all was going to be able to be used in a good way. And so that's the first we I want you to reflect upon, that invitation. We are all invited to be servants. The second we, I can't tell if that's changing. Is that it? The second we is that we must invite others to assist us in our service, that we cannot accomplish this mission alone. And as Vice Chair Parker mentioned earlier, we are navigating multiple jurisdictions for our victims. We are navigating complex jurisdictional barriers. We must call upon others to assist us. And the first thing that comes to my mind is tribal authority. We must call upon tribes to get involved in the push for VAWA, to have a voice with Congress. We need tribal support for our victim service agencies. We need tribal governmental support for their missions. You know, I think I was trying to come up with this visual. I sometimes feel with my partners back there at the table that we're in a boat, and we're in a boat on a vast ocean, and it's a little boat. And the stormy seas are high, and the skies are dark, and sometimes we invite others to come help us accomplish our mission. And I feel like sometimes people get in the boat and they sit backwards, and they're rowing against us. You ever get that feeling? Or they've gotten in the boat and there's holes in the oar. It's just not going well. So we've got to get ourselves all facing the same direction and rowing that boat together. We need tribal support for code development. We must have tribal codes that have tribal victims' rights addressed, that address domestic violence and sexual assault, both civil and criminal, as well as elder abuse. And we must have tribal governmental support for the systems that the victim encounters. We must also invite the support of tribal communities. You know, I travel across the nation working with victim service providers, and I can tell you that programs do not work if tribal communities don't buy into them. So we must invite that. And I don't want to pick on the victims advocates in the room, but really, you are the boots on the ground for educating tribal communities. We have got to educate our tribal communities about domestic violence and sexual assault. We must also invite the support of our tribal systems, and by that I mean by tribal courts. Tribal judges have to be educated and familiar with the dynamics of domestic violence and sexual assault. And they, quite frankly, have to be thoroughly educated in these jurisdictional issues to enable them to hold non-native batterers accountable. We also need our tribal prosecutors educated on this. Without any of these components, we cannot effectively serve victims. In addition, we can think about tribal law enforcement, BIA law enforcement, mental health, substance abuse, and our Indian child welfare workers. Children are affected by domestic violence and sexual assault, and we must address all these needs. An example I have of unlikely partners for you is this partnership with the Apache tribe of Oklahoma. Prior to 2001, we had never heard of each other. The Apache tribe of Oklahoma had never come up to the university, and trust me, the university had never gone into Oklahoma Indian country. We are located about an hour apart. We started with a grant from the Office of Violence Against Women. We designed a program that pairs the attorney with the victim's advocate. They work in tandem. We communicate weekly about our clients' needs. And you know what? We've been rowing the boat for 10 years. We've lost funding. We kept rowing the boat. We kept serving the victims. So rowing together is very, very important. Roadblocks will pop up. You must find ways to navigate around those. And I'll say the second we again, we must invite others to assist us in this service. My last we. We must respect and care for one another. And Vice Chair Parker brought this up again, earlier as well. This work is draining. It will suck the life out of you if you let it. How many of you, and I don't want to make you exercise because I know we're getting close to lunch and maybe your blood sugar's low, but how many of you have worked more than an 8-hour day? How many of you have ever skipped lunch to do something for a victim? How many of you have changed your schedules to assist a victim? How many of you have missed a family function while you're working with victims? So I wanted to point that out. One thing that causes me to need therapy upon hearing it is client autonomy. I'm a lawyer. I like to win cases. I like for the client to follow my advice. But for those of you who work with victims of domestic violence, client autonomy takes on a whole new meaning. Sometimes the client goes against my advice, but it's her life. And client autonomy, letting that victim make decisions, is empowering and it's healing, but it also causes those at the table back there sometimes to cringe. Client autonomy is important. I support it. I demand it, but it's difficult. So how do we get through all of this? Well, I'll share with you what we do at the Apache Tribe of Oklahoma's legal assistance to victims. We use kind words with each other. Kind words go a long way. There was a POW who had been imprisoned in Vietnam for 5.5 years, and it was Christmas time. And this POW, the captors were playing I'll Be Home for Christmas, sort of as a little emotional kind of abuse thing. And this POW really started to lose faith until he heard this tapping on the wall next to him. And it was another POW who was tapping out, "We'll all be home for Christmas, God bless America." and they were able to make it through that kind of situation. Kind words go a long way. Consider, because our resources are always strapped, consider closing your door and having some internal office therapy. You might need to do it in a soundproof room, but share with one another your frustrations, your fears, your pain. Work through those together. Do what you're doing here. Come to conferences together, and when you're here, go eat together. Go to the outlet mall together. Sit down and spend some time with each other. And as Vice Chair mentioned earlier as well, take time for yourself. Give yourself at least one day a month you don't skip lunch, that you don't work over 8 hours, that you take time to be with your family. We draw strength from one another. We are more powerful together. If you try to walk this journey alone, you will not be as effective as you will be if you invite others to walk it with you. So now in closing, I want you to consider the 3 We's, the invitations. We are invited here to be servants. We must invite others to assist us. We must respect and care for one another. I thank you all for all the work you have done and all the great work you will do. Thank you.